Yeah, it's okay. Welcome to the Side Action, episode 32 of season 4, the finale. My name is Jim Weglars, aka Wegs. You can follow me at Wegspool on Twitter and on Instagram.
And this is Steve Roberts, aka Action. You can follow me on Twitter at 31S Roberts.
Follow the podcast at Side Action Pod on Twitter and Side Action Podcast, my mistake, on Instagram.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you got to get that handle right.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people asking me, I want to follow you on Instagram on, for the podcast, and directed them the wrong place. So, so Action, obviously we had the Final Four weekend. That was exciting. How did you enjoy the Final Four?
It was fun. We watched here at home Saturday. We went out and ran some errands midday, but made sure that we were settled in back here on the couch Saturday night and watched both games here at the house. It was very enjoyable. Incredible late night game, probably one of the greatest ones in my memory, of course.
Right, right.
How about you?
And then Monday was a chill at home kind of situation, or
Yeah,
so
same
late?
thing.
It's so late.
I know, it really is. How
You
was
know,
the Final Four party?
well, it was awesome. I mean, we had, including me, 62 people came to the bar.
Wow, that's a good
So
turnout.
huge turnout. Rob and Matt were very happy, I'm sure, at the Four Shadows. I did say that we're going to be 25 or 30, so
Hmm.
a little understated. A lot of people bring friends. We took over half the bar there. We had the back half, so it was really fun. Ran some strip cards, which were, and not strip clubs. That's what everybody's asking. A strip club? No, no, a strip card. I mean, I can strip for you, but I'm always open to doing that. But no, it was pretty fun. I was running strip cards for each half, and that was a big hit. Um, Even got a shout out at the end, Rob, because I mean, I don't know how much money we made them that night, but it was a good old time, and obviously the games helped. And the first game wasn't so great, as we know, but the second game was really exciting. So it came down to the wire, and always with those strip cards, you're just waiting for. With basketball, you never know. It's not like
Yeah.
football, so really got to sit
Strip
on those.
card. I think that strip cards is really just a Chicagoland thing. I'll tell you. So we might need to do a little description here for our many listeners who are outside of Chicagoland.
Sure. So many of you have probably done a square for a Super Bowl party, which is essentially you're matching up the score of the two teams. Like if one
Mhm.
in football, it's pretty simple. If it's 7-7, you have a team that has one team has seven, the other team has seven. Only one out of 100 of the squares, qualifies to win. Well, with basketball and obviously with less people, you're not going to have 100 people sign up for squares, which you could have done if I knew there were going to be 60 people. So the strip card is just basically the numbers 0 through 9, and you sign up on a line. We kind of don't determine the number up front.
Uh,
And then in this case, the bar actually had these kind of scratch off strip cards where on the left hand side, so you have the 10 people sign up for the thing. We did $5. The winner gets the $50. And as we scratch away, the number 0 through 9, and it's just the total of the ones digit for the score. So if it's 32 to 30 at the half, two plus zero is two. That's the number. Whoever has two wins the $50. So
mhm.
um, I did have to explain that 17 times or maybe 50 times on Saturday. But in the end, it's a great way to get everybody engaged in the scoring, both in the first half and the second half. I ended up doing three strip cards for the last half of the Duke North Carolina game in and of itself. So I had 150 big ones in my pocket. I was going to get rolled in the bathroom for that. But yeah, it was fun. So good time, and then a little bit of karaoke after that, as you can imagine. And you know me, 4 hours later after going to sleep, I was up to play volleyball in the morning to sweat it out. So
Wow.
and then the pool obviously came to an end on Monday night. It came down to the final score as well because it had a two-way tie for first and a three-way tie for third. And the tiebreaker does determine those things. Your guy Cola got third, so we got the first place of that grouping into third. And then unfortunately, the guy who actually picked Kansas, the champ, his score was 53-30 Action. That's not an advisable score, maybe for a high school game. So finished second, unfortunately, in that one. And my cousin Amy finished fifth, who was leading most of the way, but she just had a really high score. But it was great. And 159 people finished out. Good times. Paid everybody out yesterday, and good stuff. And I know obviously Mahar won the player pool. I didn't even see who won second or third there.
Yeah, I was just thinking that I haven't tallied the final scores yet. It's been a busy week. My bad, dudes.
Sorry, fellas. We'll get the money later.
Yeah. We'll get around to it when we get to it. Hopefully
Yeah,
they're not going to charge me interest.
right. Well, let's jump into the action from the weekend action. We had obviously the Final Four. We kind of alluded to the first game was a bit of a, it's too bad, right? I mean, Nova had a good season, but they were a little undermanned as I kind of anticipated. Kansas, I had the money line in this game, but they covered easily in this one, the 4.5. The total was 132 and it went over. It was 81-65 final. Nova made it close, maybe with about 8 or 9 minutes to go. They cut it to 6, but they just didn't have the juice, and Kansas was able to kind of hit the throttle at the end and open it up for that 16-point victory.
Yeah, we had the over two in this podcast, and it was certainly aided by the hot shooting start of Kansas. I think Agbaji was like 6 for 6 at one point,
Yeah.
and that was all she wrote in terms of total in that game. And ultimately, it probably sealed the player of the tournament for Agbaji too, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, a little questionable if you ask me. McCormick
Uh,
had 5 in that game in the first game, and he played great. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So yeah, so Kansas advances pretty easily, and then we have the big marquee game, North Carolina against Duke. The game was nip tuck the whole way. I mean, nobody really took control of it per se. Duke was a 4-point favorite in this 150.5 point total. And in this one, it was a great game. I mean, it kind of went down. There was some, obviously our guy Armando Bacot was a beast. He continues to be a beast in this Final Four. But other guys contributed. Caleb Love just, he didn't actually shoot great from the outside, but he made a lot of big
mhm.
shots. And Duke answered. So down the stretch, this game was incredible. I mean, it was like shot for shot, like three. I think it was 3 straight possessions that were back to back to back threes. And the difference was really Mark Williams missed those 2 free throws at one stage, and then that and one that didn't count. It was just a on the floor foul because college is different than the pros. But essentially, it was just the free throw shooting down the stretch. And I know you chided the Duke defense, but it just felt like a great basketball game. And North Carolina comes on top, 81-77.
Yeah, really incredible game. I think Coach K was quick to point out the missed free throws too, because obviously it wasn't his fault that they lost the game. It was Mark Williams at the free throw line.
Right.
Uh, but I think it was more about North Carolina going out there and taking it than it was Duke losing the game. Caleb Love's shot, I think you mentioned it on here when they were up one with like 18 seconds left. That shot just took some ridiculous onions, which I think Bill Raftery called out as well in the telecast.
As you should.
And it was just incredible. Great finish to a great Final Four game.
Right. So as we go to the final on Monday, I mean, you obviously had Kansas against Duke, so you had the winner there. I had Duke, North Carolina. I mean, it was a very interesting game. Baycott got hurt during that Final Four game against Duke, and he did return, which was shocking. 'Cause when he first tapped it, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe his ankle or something. Definitely sprained it. He came back to play. That was the story. I was telling you via text that I had before the Duke game, I hedged my bet with North Carolina, getting 5-1 odds for them to win the title. So I had the money on there. So I hedged with Kansas. I got a little greedy. I kind of thought Kansas was going to win pretty easily. And instead of just taking the money line under parlay thing, I ended up doing the -4 for Kansas because that was the line and the under. And Kansas came out 7-0. I'm like, all right, this looks good. And then North Carolina just went on a tear at the end of that half, outscoring them like 16-0 at one stretch, leading at 15 at the break. And, that's the largest lead. We'll say later, we already know Kansas won, the largest lead anybody's overcome to win the title. In the second half, it was like a totally different game. Bill Self actually got into him, I guess, and Kansas played great, stormed back, but it was still a great game down the stretch. My cover looked like it was going to be okay when Kansas had the ball with about 4.5 seconds to inbound, but they threw the ball and the guy stepped on the line. I couldn't believe it. Actually, it was a terrible play call.
Yeah, yeah. And probably the last guy on the floor that Kansas wanted to have at the free throw line. I think Harris had shot like 20 free throws all season. And so it's just totally remarkable. I had Christian Brown prop over 12 and a half, and he was sitting on 12 points. And I'm thinking, this is great. They're going to get it to Brown. He's going to go to the free throw line. And of
Right.
course, he took the ball out of bounds. So, and then after that, Bill Self inexplicably chooses not to foul when they certainly had an opportunity to foul Love with his back to the basket. And really kind of lucky that Self and Kansas ended up winning that game. They almost blew it on multiple occasions.
Right, right. I mean, the big play too was Baycott kind of had a drive and fell. He slipped and his ankle gave out again, and then he went out of the game. I would think they were down by 2 at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of one of those things that the game was right there, even though Kansas stormed back and took the lead. And yeah, like you said, the strange thing. I mean, obviously you're supposed to foul because they were a 1-1 too. They weren't even in the bonus, but Love got a look. It was a decent look, but it was molested. He missed it, and Kansas is a winner. So Bill Self has 2 championships, and it was kind of unlikely, but they snuck up on everybody and won the title.
Yeah, probably one of the easier roads in recent memory, though, of the teams that they had to face to get there.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they didn't have to beat a 1 seed, obviously in the Final Four, and they really didn't have to beat. I guess Villanova was a 2 seed, but
Mm-hmm.
in their region just fell apart. So they kind of walked in. But hey, you got to win. It was a crazy tournament, and they got it done. And North Carolina was game in the final. So
Right.
closes out a great season action. So nice work on the call there. But hopefully you won some money. I ended up whatever. I mean, I did pretty good. The Sweet 16 into the Final Four, I did very well. So I'm not really complaining.
Yeah, same. Made up for all my losses opening weekend.
That's right. That's right. Well, let's transition to golf action. This is our last segment of the season here, and we'll obviously talk about the Valero Open. I know you were all hot on that, not really, but we'll talk about the big show, the Masters here. So, how did you fare last week with the Texas Open?
I did okay. I had a couple matchups that came in, none of them on the podcast here. We had one push with Matsuyama, and then Matt Kuchar actually played really well last weekend and should have won the tournament. Ended up
Right.
second in beating Johnny Vegas in the other matchup we had. And JJ Spahn got the victory, which propelled him into a trip to Augusta this week. In which case, I'm sure he's going to fall flat on his face after the win last weekend. I'm sure he's happy to be there, and he's going to really suck it up this week.
Right. I mean, it is tough. It's a tough course. You've never been there before. I mean, Augusta is, I mean, it's a little soft, I guess, with the rain. We'll talk about that in a minute, but rookies don't fare well typically in this
Yeah.
tournament. So why don't you give us a layout? I mean, obviously the Masters is one of 4 majors. It's probably the most prestigious, I suppose. I mean, I guess it just has such lore. I mean, obviously I like the U.S. Open and the British Open or the Open actually more in some ways, but the Masters because you have to have won a tournament to get there. It's such a prestigious tournament. So give us the layout of the deal.
Yeah, the only the one of the 4 majors that's played at the same course every year
That's
at
true.
Augusta National. And this year they've actually lengthened it to, I think they added like 40 yards in total. It
Okay.
plays 75-10 now, which is one of the longest courses on tour. And you mentioned the rain earlier. I think that is really going to soften up the golf course, which will ultimately make it play longer, feel longer than the 75-10 even. And
Mhm.
it includes par fours that are much longer than typical ones on tour, which is one of the reasons that makes it so challenging. 9 of the 10 par fours play over 440 yards, and 3 of the par fours are over 490 yards. So super long, which I think gives some advantage to those players who are longer off the tee.
Right. Couple of things for this course too. The par fives are where you have to really score if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
make hay, and then famous 16, right? 16 is the hole that usually you get a hole in one. We can talk about that as a bet. That's the hole that usually if there's a hole in one on the course, that's where it is, and especially on the last day, it's such amazing. It's some amazing stories and shots over the years. But obviously with the Masters, I mean, it's one of those things that it's a whole week of activities where they've got the par three thing today. They've got the champions dinner, and I mean
Mm-hmm.
it's such a history, Butler cabin and all that kind of stuff. So it's special for certain. So you've got a couple of other things here besides the history. You've got some injuries to note.
Yeah, couple of players limping into this tournament this week, coming off some sort of various injuries. Paul Casey, certainly Masters contender. Usually he's got back spasms that he's dealing with. Bryson DeChambeau is, I can't even tell you what his injuries are, but certainly have no interest in touching him whatsoever. Abe Answer has a couple of injuries he's dealing with, along with Webb Simpson, and the defending champion, Hideki Matsuyama, has been battling injury this early season.
But how did he play last week? He won his matchup, it looks like. But what was he? Where was his finish?
Actually missed the cut. Both he and Rory both missed the cut last week at the Texas Open, and they had the same score, so it ended up being a push.
What did I tell you about Rory?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think part of that is, towards the end there on Friday afternoon, if these guys don't think they can really contend at the Valero, they're happy to maybe shave off a stroke or two and miss the cut so that they can get to Georgia a little bit sooner.
Right, right. So you've noted the course history. Basically, the people that play well at the Masters always play well at the Masters, traditionally.
Right.
The Jordan Spieths, the Tiger Woods, obviously Mickelson's played well. And what do you think? Why do you think that is?
I think it's just the nuances of the course.
Mhm.
It has bent grass greens that are extremely firm and fast, and supremely wide, undulating fairways where knowing the fairways and the greens is so important on every single hole, because you really have to place the balls in a certain spot to make sure that you can make your approach to the green and play well around the green. And so the players that have played here on numerous occasions typically fare well, and you often see players who have played here well before do it again. This, out of any other course on tour, is the most predictive in terms of course history.
Right, right. And then, some of the, elements, amen corner and things like that. There's certain stages of the course that if you aren't scoring well, you're going to struggle, right? I mean, we saw it a couple of years ago with Molinari, and I mean, he just totally blew up. And, this even Spieth a couple of years ago. What do you put two in the water in that stretch? And it's just an interesting course. It's weird because like 17, if I'm not mistaken, 16, 17, 18, not saying they're easy holes, but it's really in that kind of 12 to 15 range of holes that people make moves or go fall down because it seems like they'll carry through the last couple of holes if they're winning on Sunday, for example.
Certainly.
Of course. So, well, hey, let's go over some of the odds, and maybe before we get in the odds, let's talk about how, I mean, you've bet this tournament before the last few years, I'm sure. So we know you're going to do some matchups, but how else do you approach betting the Masters?
Yeah, I mean, this tournament, much like the other majors, typically brings with it a lot more props and novelty plays that you can play throughout the tournament. You can bet, well, you can really, on a lot of golf tournaments nowadays, you can bet to make or miss the cut. You
Right.
can bet to show bets that we call. You can take top fives, top tens, top 20s, even top 40s nowadays. There are only 91 golfers in this tournament, which is a lot lower than typical for other tour events. And there you can also bet like different categories, like top Irishman, top European, top Asian player, top South African, top Australian. There's also, I think, 5 or 6 amateurs that play in this tournament, so you can bet on the top amateur if you choose to as well.
Yeah, I saw Rivers was posting, they were grouping players by groups of 6, I think.
Okay.
They did groupings and they did
Mm-hmm.
basically like a mini odd situation where it's like plus 300 for this guy, plus 450. It's kind of like divisions in football, but how they will do in the tournament in that grouping. So that's kind of a unique way to go. You don't see that. Maybe you'll see that in other majors, but you won't see that in other tournaments for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that the favorite's John Rahm, and he was, before going in, before Scheffler won the last tournament, he was the kind of number one player in the world. He's kind of the top of the board, low plus 1,100 to win or 1,000 to win, depends on where you see it. His top 10's plus 110. Other guys, you got your guy Scheffler's up there, plus 1,400, and this is from Bet Rivers for me, plus 163 to make the top 10, and Justin Thomas, again, kind of the Rahm odds, plus 1,100, plus 110. Is there a break after that, or do you think that it goes down to like the top 7 guys that you would say that I know you're not going to bet them to win the tournament, but maybe it's more of the sure, maybe top 10 guys you can kind of hedge your bet?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a tier. I think you nailed it. Those top three guys are tier 1A without
Mm.
a doubt. Rahm, Thomas, and Scheffler. Um, they are certainly playing the best right now. Rahm has won this event before. Justin Thomas has never won it, obviously. But the key that Justin Thomas has going into this year's Masters, which is new to him, is his caddy, Bones Mackay. I think I've heard the name a dozen times already this week on Masters content because Bones is Mickelson's former caddy. And they
Oh, right.
obviously have pretty good history at the course. Bones, out of anyone else, knows the course and certainly is going to be helpful to Justin Thomas around the fairways and the greens this week.
Right, right, exactly. So you said Rom did win this before? He's won
Yeah,
a major?
Rahm's a former winner. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I thought he won the US Open, but okay. Um, yeah, but anyway, neither there nor there. He's the favorite. So there's other guys. I talked about Rory. He's plus 1600. I'm not gonna touch him, of course. Maybe top 10 plus 163. But some of these guys, Dustin Johnson, I mean, he's won before, plus 1800, plus 188. Brooks Koepka, he's a stud, plus 2000, plus 200. Shoffley's been in the mix before. I mean, Spieth, he's at plus 2200, plus 225. What about Tiger Woods? I mean, I know we got to talk about him. You got a note loader. He's kind of surprisingly plus 3,500 to win, plus 350 for the top 10. You've got him plus 115 to make the cut, and you said it's a smaller field. Is that your approach that you're looking at that?
Well, I mean, certainly I can't believe we've gotten this long without talking about Tiger
Right.
because he has been the news of the week. The big press conference yesterday where he officially announced that he's in. And, when I heard rumblings over the weekend that he was going to play, I had initially lined up my mind and told my family likewise that I would be betting against him in every way possible because coming off of the car accident, he almost lost his foot
I
like
know.
a year ago.
I'm
And
shocked.
for him to be able to come back and play in this Masters tournament initially, I thought was just for show. And the more that I've heard and read content this week, a lot of these golf writers, they know Tiger Woods, and I've heard the same thing out of everyone's mouth that there's no way Tiger would come back and play in this tournament if he didn't believe that he could win. And
Mhm.
so I've paused on my Tiger fade a little bit and talk about course history. He has like the number one course history of any golfer of all time. He's never missed a cut here as a professional.
Right. So yeah, 115 seems like a logical one. I wouldn't, I mean, if you, and I was the same way. I was going to fade him even maybe to miss the cut.
Mm-hmm.
So the number is there, but plus 350 is not a bad number, for top
Yeah.
10. It's the thing about Tiger is, and I've seen this over the last 15, 20 years, and for me, not that I'm anti-Tiger, I'm pro-Tiger, but, we won all those majors and then he kind of fell off the face of the earth for a variety of reasons. I was on board that he'd never win another major. I really thought. I mean,
Uh-huh.
probably a couple of years ago. But usually he's all in, meaning playing great, or he's playing poorly. He doesn't make the cut, but I mean, he makes the cut, but he's not going to be in the top 10. So it's like an all or nothing thing. But plus 350 is not a bad number for
Yeah.
top.
And the thing about Tiger is that is the stamina. You've Augusta is very hilly, and apparently it's difficult to walk. I don't know. I've never been there, but um, people are suggesting that he may not have the stamina to go all weekend, and so that's where I think you might find a little bit more value if you can target him in the first round, the second round to make the cut, as opposed to seeing how he's going to perform through Saturday and Sunday, because I think there's a good chance he'll fade out rounds 3 or 4.
Right. Some of the other guys I've noted, I mean, you already brought up, DeChambeau, and I guess I didn't know about the injury. I was wondering why his odds were so low because the guy's a stud. Is Fleetwood hurt? His numbers are pretty low, plus 5,500, plus 550 to make the top 10. He's been great over the last 3 years, but maybe he's got an injury that's not disclosed.
I'm not aware of any injuries, but I know that he has certainly not been in good form lately.
And Justin Rose, too, he's been a stud over the years. I mean, he's getting a little older, but plus 9,000 and plus 600 to make the top 10. I'd probably put a flyer on that just because he's played well. And he may have won, maybe he has not won, but he's definitely won, majors before. So what are the matchups that you like in this one? Oh, you're going with Rory, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I really think that despite Rory's poor play at the Masters, actually, I think that's probably a bad description. He did miss the cut last year, but the several tournaments before that, he had played really well here at the Masters, and he was kind of at that top tier. I think he had a couple of fifth place finishes the last couple of years before last year. And I think that this year he's going to play well. And on the flip side, I'm happy to fade Dustin Johnson. So I found a little bit of value here with Rory minus 105 over DJ.
Gotcha. You've also listed Luke List. He's been on our list before. You've got him both below at 150 to 1 to win the tournament, but you like him over this Van Ruyen? Is that what you said?
Erik van Rooyen is a debutant here, South African player. And I uncovered a little nugget on a podcast I listened to this week that Luke List, despite his first tournament here as a professional, actually played at the Masters as an amateur back in 2005.
Nice.
And despite that being 17 years ago, he actually played pretty well. He finished 33rd that year and won honors as the low amateur that year. And so, as you know, I found value on Luke List a lot of weeks this season, and I think he's going to play pretty well this week. And I'm really happy to take him in this matchup. Although I forgot to write the odds, I'm pretty sure it's minus 110 over Erik van Rooyen at DraftKings.
Right. You've got Finau too over Siwoo Kim, and Finau's a guy who a couple years ago, I mean, first of all, he almost broke his ankle in the par 3 contest, and then came out and played incredibly, even for 4 days. He's been good in tournaments. So you like him minus 110 over Siwoo Kim?
Yeah, Tony Finau is another guy with a really strong course history here at the Masters. And on the flip side, Siwoo Kim is a player who probably has a chance to compete as the best Asian golfer. But I do think that Finau, with his course history, has an edge here, minus 110 as well.
Gotcha. And then you do like Scheffler over Rahm plus 137. Do you know, has Scheffler played in the Masters before?
Scheffler has played here once before, I believe, maybe twice. He might have played in that fall Masters. He definitely played last year and played pretty well, in fact. And, this is on top of that, his form is just incredible right now. He's won like 3 out of the last 5 events. And obviously, you mentioned #1 in the world. And I'm just not high on Jon Rahm this week. I think that his short game has been really lacking lately. And the short game around the greens at Augusta is super important. So I'm taking Scheffler at a nice plus price, 137.
Okay. Looks like you're all over Luke List here. You've got him in the top 20 for plus 330 on top of your, 150 to 1 bet. And that's obviously noted why. What about this Russell Henley bet? Top 20 plus 185. That's bet online.
Yeah. Henley is a player who I think is a young guy, and he might actually be a debutant here this week, but he has been a name that I've heard a lot amongst the golf betting community this week as a dark horse in this tournament. Although I think the distance is probably not going to favor for him. He's not necessarily the longest hitter on tour, but his irons have been really good lately, and you've seen his odds decrease accordingly. And I don't think I'm going to target him as a winner of this tournament, but I think he could get into the top 20.
Gotcha. And then the other guys that are kind of the longer shots, you've got Cam Smith at 16 to 1, Joaquin Niemann at 65 to 1. Good old Seamus Power, I like that name, 135 to 1. You already mentioned the list. So why these guys? Why did you target these guys?
Well, I was looking at players who were long off the tee. Looking at strokes gained off the tee is really important, and what I look for in the Masters and around the green, as well as driving distance. I think, you mentioned it earlier, and par 5 scoring. Luke List is in the top category of both of those week in and week out. And I think that these other guys are certainly right up there too. Cam Smith played well, winning at TPC Sawgrass this season. And Niemann just dazzled at Riviera Country Club. And both of those courses correlate very well to the Masters.
Gotcha. Yeah, distance control is important. That's what I was listening to today. That distance control, of course, targeting the greens, right? Getting the right spot. But it's hard for, that's feel, where they're at. That's probably why, Scheffler is probably in a good spot. But well, we'll see. I haven't made any bets yet. I've got some ideas, but probably way shots in the dark a little more than yours are probably more, researched. But put a little action on there, make it interesting.
Yeah, and nowadays in golf, you don't have to get involved pre-tournament too. You're going to see these odds that pop up every single day after the round is complete. And you can even get involved on round by round matchups too. If you see a couple players tomorrow that you really like and interested in betting them on Friday, you can pick them in a matchup to beat somebody on Friday.
That was one thing I was going to ask you. So besides doing it pre tee off, is there in-game, like you would see in a regular, basketball game or something? Is there in-game odds, whether it's to win or top five? What do you usually see when you're doing in-game for golf?
Um, Certainly, there is in game. On Thursday and Friday, it's a little bit more sporadic because there are two waves, typically because all the golfers are in the tournament.
Right.
You've got a morning wave and an afternoon wave. So I don't think you're going to see too many odds changes in those timelines.
Mhm.
But at the end of each day, you're going to see new odds posted after Thursday's round is complete, and similarly for Friday. And then as you move into the weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, typically a lot of these books are going to post live odds after every stroke. So everyone's on the course usually at one time. And by that point, they filtered through where the leaders are playing later in the day. And you're going to see live odds, much like you would a basketball or football game.
Right. Now, would you dabble on this whole hole-in-one in the tournament or those kind of props? Or you just stick to the player props, the players
The,
themselves?
the hole-in-one prop has been hot lately. I think Paulie Howard was talking about it, how it's beaten him
Yes.
the last several years in a row. I'm not sure what the odds are, but I haven't bet it. And if I were going to, I would certainly be looking at hole-in-one. Yes.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I don't see it at Rivers, to be honest with you, so I'd have to look at other books around to see if I can find it. But yeah, I was interested in that one for sure. And there weren't a lot of no props from what I saw.
Mhm.
Rivers anyway. It was all the stuff we're talking about. Just betting. Basic index props. You're not doing like the no. Tiger not to make the cut. No, there's not a lot of yes nos like you would see with the Super Bowl, which is a little disappointing. But
Right.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. I think some of these books don't really like putting the no prices up on some of these things.
they'll lose, right? They'll lose. So. Well, great. Any more for the Masters as we sign off the season here?
No, I don't think so. That was all the content. I obviously have a lot more bets in my app here, but those are kind of my top choice ones that I wanted to share with the listeners.
That's awesome. Well, great action as we complete season four. A little look back. We had a great season. We improved in the circuit contest. Maybe we took a little beating maybe early in the tournament, but we made it up the last couple of weekends. And obviously, you've done really well on golf. So overall, I think we had a really good, successful season.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's enjoyable catching up every week and talking football, basketball, and golf here at the end. And certainly looking forward to reconvening next year and we'll go after that circuit prize once again.
Yeah, we'll be out there in August. Obviously, we keep promoting it. Everybody is welcome to join us out there. Get a big following over at the stadium swim pool and actually as an aside, I was talking to Dempsey. Did come to the party. He's
Nice.
talking about maybe entering the circuit contest. I told him Don and it had kicked around the idea in the past. I'm like, they could split an entry. It'd be nice to get more people than us in there just to kind of discuss it once in a
Mhm.
while. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting. We'll be doing it again next year, starting in late August. So for the loyal listeners, we're taking a break. We'll be off for 6 months or so, or 4 months, I guess. 4 months, right? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, August.
Half months, and but follow our content. We still are active on Twitter and stuff. I obviously post stuff for the blog, and don't be a stranger. You can hit us up on our various platforms. Me at wegspool.com, and obviously you can hit me on Twitter and Instagram at wegspool.
And you can follow me on Twitter at 31S Roberts.
All right, and follow us Inside Action Pod on Twitter, Inside Action Podcast on Instagram. So 130 episodes, Action. We did it, man. We keep doing it.
Nice.
All right, buddy. We'll have a great trip to South Carolina. Enjoy your new clubs, and we'll reconvene in a few months.
Sounds great.
All right, brother.
Peace.